For most of history, computers have basically been glorified calculators. They were powerful, sure, but they only did exactly what we told them to do. Well, that era is officially over. We're now living through the emergence of a new kind of intelligence, one that can learn, that can reason, and that can create things in ways we used to think were, well, uniquely human. This is generative AI. And trust me, understanding it isn't just a fun little side project, it's absolutely essential. So let's break it down, what it is, how it actually works, and what it really means for you and your future.
This quote right here, it perfectly captures the massive shift we're all living through. Just think about that for a second. Intelligence as a service. It's like having this giant, creative brain floating up in the cloud, and pretty much anyone can tap into it. We've gone from computers that just find information to computers that can create totally new information.
So how are we going to make sense of all this? Well, we're going to tackle it in 5 key steps. First, we need the right mental model. Let's call it your personal Einstein. Then, we'll peek under the hood a little to see how this thing actually learns. After that, we'll explore all the incredible things it can do, figure out our new role in this human-AI partnership, and finally, we'll nail down the one single skill you absolutely need to master to thrive.
Okay, first things first. Let's forget all the jargon and just establish a really powerful way to think about this technology. It's time for you to meet your personal Einstein.
It is so important to understand this one difference. The AI we're all used to, like Google search or your Netflix recommendations, it's like a master librarian. It's incredibly good at finding and organizing stuff that already exists. But generative AI? That's a whole different beast. It's not a librarian, it's an artist. It doesn't just find things, it creates them from scratch. We're talking new text, new images, new code, you name it.
And that brings us to this personal Einstein idea. Just imagine you have access to a mind that has read every book, seen every movie, and knows the sum total of all human knowledge. But here's the catch. Its biggest weakness isn't its own intelligence, it's your ability to ask it the right questions. You are the key that unlocks all of that genius.
Okay, so that's the big idea. But let's lift the hood for just a second and see how this AI actually learns. And don't worry, I promise, we're going to keep this super simple. No computer science degree required.
So how does an AI get so smart? Well, you can think of it as a 4-step process. First, it basically swallows a library the size of the entire internet. Then it just plays a simple game of guess the next word. But it does this billions and billions of times, and it starts to see patterns. As it guesses, it's automatically tweaking its own internal wiring to get better and better. And then, and this part is absolutely crucial, real human trainers give it feedback, kind of like training a dog with a clicker, rewarding the good answers and correcting the bad ones. That last step is what teaches it to be truly helpful.
You hear the term GPT thrown around all the time, right? Well, it's not just some random name. It actually tells you exactly what it is. G is for generative. It creates new stuff. P is for pre-trained, meaning it did all its learning before we ever got our hands on it. And T stands for transformer, which is the specific, groundbreaking AI design that made this whole revolution possible in the first place. All right, so now we know kinda how it learns, but let's get to the fun part. Its universe of capabilities. What can this technology actually do? The answer is probably a lot more than you think.
Yeah, we are talking way beyond just a simple chatbot here. This is a complete creative toolbox. It can write essays, it can write code, it can compose music, generate mind-blowing images, or even short videos, all from a simple sentence. And the big trend now is what's called multimodal AI, which just means a single powerful tool that can understand and create with text, images, and sound all at the same time.
One of the wildest things about this AI is something called emergent capabilities. These are skills that nobody programmed into them, they just appeared. As the models got bigger, they suddenly started writing poetry or drafting business strategies. They were never specifically taught about things like gravity or physics. But because they read so much about the world, they can infer that if you hold scissors over a pot of boiling water and cut the string holding an egg, the egg will fall into the water. It just figures it out. It's incredible.
Okay, this is all fascinating stuff, but let's pivot to the really big question here. So what? What does all this mean for us? For our jobs, for our companies, for our future?
For something like 300,000 years, human intelligence has been on a slow, steady, upward climb. But AI intelligence, it's not on a climb, it's on a rocket ship. It's an exponential curve shooting straight up, and we are living right at the exact moment where those two lines are crossing. For some things, AI is already better than us. For others, we still have the edge. But that gap is closing at a pace that is, depending on your perspective, either terrifying or absolutely thrilling.
So when you're faced with a change this huge, people tend to fall into one of three camps. First, there's denial. The "this could never do my job" crowd. Then there's panic. The "it's going to take my job no matter what" group. And honestly, neither of those is very helpful. The winning mindset is right in the middle, seeing AI as a tool that can make you and your team and your company insanely productive.
So instead of fearing that you'll be replaced, try reframing it. Think of AI as your new genius colleague. But it's a quirky one. It can be absolutely brilliant, but it can also confidently just make stuff up, a thing we call hallucinations. It needs your expertise, your human judgment to keep it on the right track. Your job is to be the expert in the room who knows when your brilliant colleague has had one too many bright ideas.
So that brings us to our final and maybe most important section, mastering the new skill. Knowing everything we've just talked about, what do you actually do right now? The single most essential skill for this new age is something called prompt engineering. And it's really just a fancy term for the art and science of communicating effectively with an AI. The quality of your questions, the context you provide, that is what separates a useless answer from a brilliant one. This is going to be as fundamental as learning how to read and write.
Let's look at a quick example. If you type in a prompt like, "help me plan a workshop," it's just way too vague. The AI has no context. Who's the workshop for? How long is it? What's the goal? So what you're going to get back is a vague, generic, and frankly pretty useless answer.
But now look at the difference when you just add a little bit of context. A 3-hour workshop for 20 project managers on AI tools. All of a sudden, you've given your genius colleague the raw material it needs to create something truly valuable for you. The quality of your input directly, and I mean directly, determines the quality of its output. The difference is night and day.
And hey, here's a pro tip that'll take it to the next level. It's called the interview technique. Instead of trying to guess all the context the AI needs, just flip the script. Tell the AI its role. You are an expert workshop facilitator. And then tell it to interview you. Let it ask all the questions it needs to give you the best possible answer. This is a complete game changer.
So, the technology is here. The intelligence is on tap. Your genius colleague has basically read everything ever written and is just sitting there, waiting for your direction. The only question left is the most important one of all. What are you going to build together?